The Zephyrian armada had swept through the outer rim like a cosmic storm, leaving behind only smoking ruins and broken civilizations. For 3 standard years, their massive dreadnoughts had carved a path of destruction across 17 star systems, their advanced plasma weaponry reducing entire fleets to scrap metal within minutes. Admiral Kextar stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominion's edge, his 4 arms crossed behind his chitinous back as he gazed at the tactical display. The next target was a small human colony world called Haven's Rest, barely 2 million inhabitants, protected by what their intelligence suggested was a single outdated warship. "Pathetic," hissed Commander Veloth from her station. "The humans still use kinetic weapons and chemical propulsion. Their technology is centuries behind ours." Kextar's mandibles clicked in agreement. The Zephyrians had encountered human forces twice before during their conquest. Both encounters had lasted less than 30 minutes. Human ships were slow, their weapons primitive, their tactics predictable. They fought with the desperation of a dying species clinging to obsolete ways of war. "Signal the fleet," Kextar commanded. "Standard formation. We'll make this quick. I want to reach the core worlds before the Galactic Council can mount any meaningful resistance." The Armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven's Rest system. Immediately, sensors picked up the lone human vessel positioned between them and the planet. Kextar studied the readout with growing amusement. The ship was ancient by galactic standards, a hulking, angular beast of metal and ceramic plating that looked more like a flying fortress than a modern warship. Its designation read UES Defiance, and according to their database, it was nearly 40 years old. Steam actually vented from cooling ports along its hull, a barbarically inefficient system that no civilized species had used in centuries. "They're hailing us," reported the communications officer. "Put them through. Let's hear their surrender." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a scarred human face beneath a worn military cap. Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Defiance looked directly at Kextar with eyes that held no fear, only grim determination. "This is Captain Chen of the United Earthship Defiance. You are in violation of neutral space. Turn your ships around and leave this system immediately." The bridge erupted in clicking laughter. One human in one obsolete ship, ordering an entire armada to retreat. Kextar's mandibles spread wide in what passed for a smile among his species. "Captain Chen," he replied, "you have exactly 1 minute to surrender your vessel and submit to Zephyrian authority. Your resistance is admirable but futile." Chen's expression didn't change. "I said leave. You have 10 seconds to comply." The transmission cut out. Kextar stared at the blank screen for a moment, then shook his head. "Target their ship. Full power to forward plasma batteries. Let's end this quickly." What happened next would be debated in military academies for generations. The Defiance didn't retreat or attempt evasive maneuvers. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the Zephyrian formation, its primitive chemical thrusters burning white-hot against the void. As it closed the distance, its weapon ports opened to reveal row after row of magnetic acceleration cannons, rail guns that fired solid tungsten slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. The first volley struck the lead Zephyrian destroyer before its shields could adapt. The kinetic rounds, dismissed as obsolete by every major military in the galaxy, punched through the energy barriers like they weren't there. The destroyer's hull buckled and tore, atmosphere venting in brilliant streams as internal explosions rippled through its superstructure. "Impossible!" Veloth shrieked. "Our shields are rated against all known energy weapons." But these weren't energy weapons. They were chunks of metal moving at relativistic speeds, carrying kinetic energy that no shield generator had been designed to stop. The Zephyrians had grown so accustomed to fighting enemies who relied on lasers and plasma that they'd forgotten the devastating simplicity of mass times velocity. The Defiance continued its charge, weathering the return fire from dozens of Zephyrian ships. Its hull plating, thick and crude by modern standards, absorbed hit after hit. Where other ships relied on shields and maneuverability, the human vessel depended on raw durability, layer upon layer of ablative armor that could withstand punishment no energy barrier could match. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel," Kextar commanded. But his words carried a note of desperation now. 3 more of his ships had been crippled by the relentless railgun barrage, and the Defiance showed no signs of slowing down. "Captain," Chen's voice crackled across all frequencies. "This is for every world you've burned, for every innocent life you've taken, for every species that thought they had to surrender to survive." The Defiance reached point-blank range and opened fire with everything it had: railguns, missile batteries, even ancient projectile weapons. That hadn't been seen in combat for decades. The flagship Dominion's Edge staggered under the assault, its shields failing as tungsten slugs tore through its hull. But the human ship wasn't finished. As secondary explosions began ripping through the Zephyrian flagship, the Defiance did something that defied every tactical doctrine in the known galaxy. It rammed the enemy vessel head-on. The collision lit up space like a newborn star. Both ships, locked together in a twisted embrace of metal and fire, tumbled through the void as their reactors went critical. In her final transmission, Captain Chen's voice came through clear and steady. "Tell them, humans don't know how to quit." The explosion that followed vaporized both vessels and sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian formation. In the space of 20 minutes, the mighty armada had lost its flagship and 6 other ships to a single, outdated human warship that shouldn't have been able to scratch their paint. Admiral Kextar, his command ship burning around him, stared at the expanding cloud of debris that had once been 2 starships. For the first time in his military career, he felt something he'd never experienced before: fear. The humans hadn't fought like any civilized species. They hadn't calculated odds or sought advantageous positions. They had simply pointed their ship at the enemy and refused to stop until both sides were dead. As the surviving Zephyrian ships limped away from Haven's Rest, Kextar realized that their easy conquest of the galaxy had just become infinitely more complicated. They had encountered something that their advanced technology and superior firepower couldn't overcome: a species that would rather die fighting than live in surrender. The humans, it seemed, were different, and that difference might just be enough to turn the tide of the war.